sayang din yung time, and I know you guys have other things to do as well. So I will just do the lecture, do a recap of Module 5. Again, it's a short module. So again, cover Module 5. There's I think, one final discussion board um, in Module 5. The FIO guidelines were discussed by Mr. Dino Saplala last week, I think. So please follow those for the FIO guidelines. For those who are not in the third year, no, mga fourth year students, no, I sent the guidelines for your separate group paper, no. So if you have questions, no, please let me know, no. Homework number 2 is now due on Friday. Thanks to Zuriel for reaching out to me. So it's now due on Friday. Take more time if you need to rest, but don't, please, not an academic strike, maybe more of a personal break, I hope. Parang namatayan, di ba? Nagluluksa, but not hopefully an academic strike. Not walking out. I don't think that's the solution. But again, you're adults. You have your own way of thinking about things as well. It's the last synchronous session. Sorry, it ended in a sour note for all of us, most of us. But next week, no, I'll still be online. No, I'll for the first hour and a half, 2 hours, or if no one shows up, then I'll just close it after half an hour. I started doing this last semester. Ask me anything, discuss anything with me. I mean, the modules in class or outside class, career advice, no, whatever. The final integrated output, whatnot. No. FIO, I think we asked Sir Dino, no, asked Mr. Saplala. I think we decided on either March 26 or 27. Someone asked me. It's a private chat. So please check with him again. So we had the meeting, no, me, Ate Abby and Dino, no, we had the meeting to finalize the FIO. We talked about the deadline, so please ask him again. So we wanted him we wanted to centralize the guidelines with him. So please ask him. Okay. So module 5, no? So consists of 2 parts. No? Causal analysis, problem analysis, and project intervention. So we, again, same with CBMS, no? It's always when you want to do something, no? For example, what do you want to do now, no? Given that there's this looming Marcos presidency, then, you know, whenever you want to do something, you diagnose, and then you develop, and I'm including this module. This is for you, no, tools that you may want to use, no, in your orgs, in your projects, in your future careers. This is very useful, no. Development practitioners use this all the time. Pero short lang to. Don't worry. We'll be done quickly. No? Then I'll cap it again with a few more notes, no? As we close the course. So why do we do causal analysis? No? That's the key question here. Kasi the problem is, di ba, you have the, let's say, the CBMS data, no? Many of those high-level, what we call high-level indicators, no? Those are especially the poverty, the malnutrition, etc. The challenges can actually be symptoms rather than the causes. Diba, when a patient goes to the doctor prescribes interventions not on the symptoms, no? Yes, pwedeng palliative like fever, no? But it won't cure the fever because fever, for example, is not an illness. It's actually a symptom of something. So you want to treat the illness. So same thing with development interventions or development challenges. You want to know what's causing the symptoms, no? What's causing the major challenges, so that eventually you can identify the interventions. Kasi high poverty incidence, it's hard to tie that to a particular intervention. So you ask why. What's causing that? The what's causing that factors will lead you to the more specific and more appropriate interventions. Because identifying causes is important for thinking of interventions. To identify causes, you keep asking why. And you can keep on asking why, no, to get to the more basic, more fundamental root causes. So here's an example. Pero ito hindi pa to hierarchical. No? I trust that many of you have already covered or finished Module 5. So causal analysis. Children under 5 are malnourished. I got this from a website. That's the main problem. No? Yes, you can argue, hindi, pakainin lang sila. That will solve it. But there might be underlying factors that, you might build your interventions around, which might be better. No? So there could be many, many causes. No? Not enough food, not enough money, poor agriculture yields, malnourished animals, etc., etc. So I don't have to go through the list. Later on, I'll show you something. What do you call this? The problem tree, no, which you can make use of also, no, when you're trying to identify the causes, no, in a more systematic, more logical, and if you want, hierarchical manner. So there are two tools that I will show you, no, which is also part of Canvas, the Canvas course. One popular tool is the fishbone diagram. And obviously, and I stole this from the video I posted on Canvas. No? It looks like a fish, no? A fishbone. You have the head, which is the major development challenge that you are interested in. And then you have the causes. So there are two ways of doing it. No? Two main ways. No? One is, of course, you have the main problem, and then you have the causes, and you categorize, you organize them into different categories. So ito, poor hand washing, no, or lack of or poor hand washing behavior. So lack of soap, that falls under materials, no. Lack of know-how, that falls under methodology or methods. There are not enough people to train or to teach kids or mothers how to do it properly. So people, so equipment, etc. So you can do it by categories. You organize, but you do it first here now. Don't come up with the categories first. You list them down and then slowly try to categorize them. That's one way of doing it. Here's the other way, no, which I prefer more, no, which is more hierarchical. So at USA, no, we actually have training on project development, which includes diagnosis as well as developing project components, log frames, which we'll discuss later. So I stole some of the slides that are used in our standard training. So even development professionals are not all development professionals are super knowledgeable or even good at this. No? So I'm sharing this with you because you might find it useful. No? So first, identify, no, the head, which is the major problem, no, that you're trying to trying to address. Then identify, like the earlier table, no? Wala mo nang hierarchy. Wala mo nang this causes this, therefore this leads to that. Wala mo na. Just lay them down, no hierarchy. Identify all of them that contribute directly or indirectly even. So state them as negative conditions because it's a challenge, it's a problem. And organize all the specific problems into direct cause and effect relationships. And take each causal chain. So this is a summary. Then review it. We'll go through this one by one. So ito, kanina, di ba, the one approach is list the causes and then organize them into categories. Ito naman, you organize them into sub-factors. So meron kang major problem, you have a you list them down, no? Then there are sub-problems causing the major problem, if then yan. This is happening and this causes that. Or baliktarin ninyo, this is the outcome and this is causing that to happen. And then there are sub problems, no? Yun nga, so you can go deeper, and usually when you go deeper, those are the root causes. So major problem, no? So again, first identify everything, list them down, then now you categorize into sub problem or sub problem, or even sub problem if you want to get further down. So pwede yan. So I'll show you examples. So ito, no? So for example, decreasing ability of water supply to meet demand, which is a standard issue faced in developing countries, especially. What's causing that? So yeah, brainstorm. Worsening drought, weak water-related NGOs, little public advocacy, etc., etc. Weak laws and policies. Yan. So be exhaustive as much as you can. And then if you forget something, then put it back, no? Or add it in. No? Then organize it into direct cause and effect. No? This leads to that. So yan. No? So ito, pangit yung practices. No? Kasi kulang ng capital yung mga firms, no? Or weak di ba? Weak maintenance costs, no? So ang dami-dami, no? Ito worsening drought, you can have another set of sub problems there, no? So yun. So list them down. No, you organize them into sub. So hierarchical, no? This cause, kaya sa sub kasi this is caused by this and this is caused by that. And if you can go further down, and that is caused by those things. So pwede ganun. Kasi maganda yun eh. Kasi when you plot it out, if you become exhaustive, madali na lang. And by the way, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. Na? Sometimes there are two sub problems, no, that may manifest in different main sub problems. In that case, you can argue those are very important. So pag nalatag nyo na dito, then you can choose, no, depending on your budget, no, which will be your priorities, no? Which is really, you think, no, the root causes, no? Which are the root causes. So I'll share these slides, no, for your own perusal, no? And the recording after we talked about the election stuff earlier. And, you know, review the fishbone diagram. Do the causal connections make sense? Etc., etc. Does each lower level problem contribute to the next higher level and then ultimately to the head, the major development? Okay. So ito, this is a full-blown. Ito, so high infant and child mortality. Sige, ito na lang mini exercise natin. Can anyone critique this, no? Say what's wrong with this fishbone analysis. When I was discussing this last time, no, it became apparent to me that there was something wrong. For me, no? Kasi even development practitioners, even long-time seasoned ones, no, make mistakes. And I saw mistakes here. No? I saw mistakes here. Can someone critique this? May nakita akong medyo mali. Ito, for example, no? Kasi the test is to test the logic. No? Does this lead to that? No? So ito, use of powdered formula instead of breastfeeding. Does yes, that can contribute to child mortality, but does it contribute to short birth intervals? Hindi, di ba? So medyo may mali yung logic. So again, it's iterative naman. So you organize, you keep revising, etc. But everything else is correct. So the main sub-problems are short birth intervals kasi sabi nga nila, di ba, you space them out. Kasi yung mattress ng mom, you need to recover, etc. Tama naman yung iba, no? Attitudes towards family planning, lack of access will lead to this, and then will become a factor for this. No? Ito naman, lack of information and beliefs. No? Diarrhea naman, which is a major cause of child mortality. No? The poverty, no, lack of income, and low agricultural productivity will lead to inadequate nutrition, will lead to child mortality. A lack of donor investments, drought, lack of TA. TA is technical assistance. No? Yung tipong donors will have projects that will train or build capacities of beneficiaries. No? Will lead to this and therefore that. Or you could even connect this with diarrhea. No? So when you're revising it, you can even collapse things. No? Kasi I would actually put this here, no, as a sub of this one. And you can have sub pa if you want. Low vaccination, yes. So, ganun din. So that's an example. No? And feel free, no, whenever you, I'm not saying you do this, no. Ginawa last semester, no, some of the groups, no, for homework 2, no, they were very creative, no. They actually, I don't remember if it's the FIO or the homework 2. They actually did a fishbone analysis, no, and a log frame, no, in coming up with the recommendations. Feel free to use this, no, if you still want, if you still have time. So that's the fishbone, no. So 2 ways of doing it could be categorical, no, based on categories, materials, people, etc., or actual causes. No? And then you have sub-causes, or sub-problem, and then sub-problem, or even below. Ito, I also like the problem tree, and sometimes I actually like the problem tree more because it's hierarchical. Kita mo agad. Ito, the problem with this, visually, it's not hierarchical. Ito, this is more hierarchical. So you have the problem, the major problem. So it's this one is the problem tree visualization of this one. Na-organize na siya into cause and effect. So, yun. So the main problem is we do not have enough food. Why do you not have enough food? Because not enough money, not enough soil. Poor soil. No? So we can't eat. We can't farm what we need, no, to eat. No? Not enough money because you don't have income sources. No? Fertilizers are bad, therefore the soil is bad, and then not enough food. So hierarchical. This is caused by this, by this, and by this. Pwede rin. No? So we do not have the right kinds of food. Why? Because the animals are malnourished. Why? Because there's drought and disease. So yun. So you get it na. No? So caregivers feed young kids inappropriate foods. No? Pancit Canton, Coke, which happens, no, in many instances. No? Kids as young as 3 or so, no, eating Lucky Me. I like Lucky Me, but kids, no, tradition, do not know the right foods, no, kulang sa education, and misinformation about foods, so etc. So if you really want to go hierarchical and see the actual root causes, then the 5 whys is also good. You don't have to go 5 levels down. So, but you just keep asking why until sinasabi nila, you no longer have a cause, no? A deeper cause. It's called the 5 why. Sabi kasi nila, on average, no, you stop at after asking the 5th why. Or hindi ka naaabot. Okay. Just checking the time. Okay. So remember, no, whenever, no, and before I go to the other part, log frame. No, remember again, no, module 3, no, whenever you're analyzing the situation in a particular community, like your NSTP, no? Your big KISS communities, or your partner organizations. No? Remember to include participatory approaches. So you have three things going on. No? Data, objective data. Hopefully you have objective data kasi wag din naman puro kung anong sinabi. Because sometimes it's a function of who you talk to, no? And they might not be super representative of of, of the entire picture. So same with surveys, diba? Pag hindi representative yung survey, then there are errors and biases. Then you have input, obviously, from beneficiaries. You combine them and you use your expert analysis. So eventually, especially for those of you who are interested in development work, no, you will gain more expertise and with experience. The next part, no, so parang CBMS, you're done analyzing cause and effect, etc. Now, what do you do? So again, you focus on this, no? So ang problema, you have to also be strategic, no? You can't, I mean, of course, all projects have limited funds, no? So you have to pick and choose. So another tool that is useful is called the logic model, or usually we call it the log frame or logical framework. It's also hierarchical. This is more hierarchical than kasi it's asking you to identify what would you like to see. Causal din siya, no? And from how do we get there? No, para siyang roadmap eh. What steps will you take to get to a certain point? So impact and goal, for to simplify, we can just merge both, no? So it is you start with the end in mind, no? When doing a log framing. What do you want to achieve based on your analysis? Based on this, no? Based on what the data is telling you, what do you want to achieve? What is the impact? The impact is medyo high, high level. Yung tipong it's not just your project that's gonna be contributing to achieving that, but your project plus other variables. So what is your high impact thing? Then your outcome. And so ito, mga MDGs, no? Access to water, solving extreme poverty, etc. So very, very broad, very macro things. The next is, what will lead you to that? No? So outcome naman ang tinatawag dyan. Outcome is something that is a result of what you do, which are the outputs. No? I'll discuss both at the same time. So output, actually, when you have a project, those are the tangible things that you actually implement, you carry out, you deliver. No? So goods and services. No? So simple lang. For example, there's a feeding program. No? The output is the actual milk or food that you give out. No? The outcome is higher weight, higher weight of the kids. That's the outcome. No? It's not what you do, but it's the result of what you do. And then from the outcome, hopefully less kids will be malnourished. No? So it's the longer term. So think of it as outputs. What do you do? Outcome is the result of what you do, no? Which is not, you can't directly deliver it because it's a result of what you do. It's not what you do per se, which will lead to long-term effects. That will not necessarily be attributable only to your project, but your project combined with other factors will help that situation. To be honest with you, activities, for me, I skip this step. Many development practitioners don't even include this. So maybe for our purposes, don't do this. Activities naman and outputs are kinda synonymous. Ito mas very, what do you call this? Mas himay. Very disaggregated or decomposed. And then finally, inputs. No, inputs. Those are the resources that you use, no, to deliver goods and services, or to do something that will lead to results, which are outcomes that will eventually in the long run have impact. So inputs, ano lang yan? Human resources, financial resources, project budget, expertise, equipment, etc. Time, effort, no? Things that you use. Parang ano yan eh, parang sa module 3, no? It's your land labor capital, parang factors of production, no? That you use to come up with goods and services, training, and whatnot, no, that will lead to results, and then in the long run help achieve greater things. To simplify. So ito, parang ito pala, no, that's why I remembered malnourishment. So ito for example lang. So here, no, these, no, the things that you do, no, sa output level, no, should be informed by this. Saan ka dito? Saan ka dito ta-target? Hopefully, dito sa root causes, if you have the resources to do so. So, if you want, no, if you want on the long-term basis, no, you want malnourishment or malnutrition to be reduced, no, among children, no, what you want in the short run, no, the results of what you want to do is you want increase in food intake, obviously. And you want more healthy meals, no? So what do you do to target these outcomes? You have feeding programs, you have cash for work schemes, no, to give more money, so that money can hopefully be spent for more food, healthier food, and social behavior change sessions. Yung activities, again, you can skip, no? Pero yun nga, masyadong detailed na, no? Workshops, but some development practitioners like this because you can really, if you're a OC, no, if you're a control freak, no, you really want to control every little thing, no, you can do activities. No? Pero for me, that's optional. Kaya nga dun sa final discussion board ninyo, that's optional. So workshops, discussions with LGUs, the very specific things you will do. Ito kasi mas final product, no, that you're doing, no, and delivering. Ito could be prep towards this. No? So again, it's an if-then. Similar to causal analysis. Pero ito, intervention naman. No? So inputs, no, financial resources from, let's say, donors like USAID, counterpart funding from the local government unit, and then experts. No? So start with the end in mind. Start with this. Move your way backward. And then when you're done, you then check the logic and you move from left to right. Right to left first and then left to right. Iterative to. Ay, sige, let's add more. Let's edit. Siguro hindi ito, no? So let's test the logic. So you use the resources. I'll skip the activities, no? Masyado ng granular. You use the resources from donors and from the LGU. You come up with a feeding program, a cash for work thing, scheme, social behavior change sessions, etc. So these are just some items, no? Hindi to exhaustive, no? Then these hopefully, no, will lead to an increase in food intake, families allocating more, and then hopefully that will solve malnutrition in the long run. Activities and outputs are things that you can control. The project can control. These ones, no, if designed well, you will expect these things to lead to this, or to these. Kasi dalawa to. But there are other variables. No? The results sometimes are influenced not just by your project, but other factors. Eh kung ninakaw yung materials, no, sa feeding program, then it doesn't translate to that. No? So there are other variables. No? So these things, outcome you hope will be the result or results of what you do. And then the impact obviously is a long-term thing. No? But these are the things that you can control. These ones you hope will happen, but you don't have complete control over what happens. Then finally, obviously, all the more that you don't have complete control of something that's larger or more long-term. So ganon. Right to left, test the logic, no? Outputs, and activities are the tangible ones. Ha? So when you're doing your discussion board, wag yung tangible sa outcome. Results yun. That can mean like behavior change, institutional like a policy, increased knowledge, no, increased skills, competencies. So may ano dito, may mga examples dito sa UN document that I shared on Canvas. Don't give me feeding program as an outcome, kasi outcome is the result. It's not what you do, it's the result of what you do. Outputs are the things you do, and activities, obviously, if you want to be granular. And inputs are what you use, no? The factors of production, so to speak, for you to produce this, which will lead to this, hopefully, and then in the long run, again, hopefully, that. Other tools for project management, and this is more granular. And I don't know if you guys have heard of the Gantt chart, no? But some of you may already be using some variant of this. For project management na, no? Once, ito kasi medyo high level pa to, no? Very generic. No? But if you already have the project in place, you really want to manage it well, no? Granular, yung activities niyo, etc. You can have a Gantt chart. It's basically a schedule lang. It could be by day, by week. Ako by month kami usually. And then you list down all the things that you want to do. So ito, for example, it's also used in software development or IT. No? So design, development, testing. No? So yan, may schedule yan. So it helps you keep track, no? And see what you should do. Ito maganda to. It's a combination of the things you need to accomplish to get to a certain part, no? And for you to keep track whether you're on track or you need to adjust. Kasi some outputs, no, here's outputs are dependent on other outputs. No? So minsan, pag hindi pa to tapos, can't get to the next stage. And this can help visualize that. So try this. For example, you're planning an event. Perfect to. By this date, dapat tapos na invitations. By this date, so very, very useful. I use this all the time when I used to manage projects. So very, very helpful. Parang checklist yun na rin in a sense. And you can be as granular as you want. Ito, because we spent a lot of time talking about the elections, and I want to provide my final thoughts as I close the course. Feel free, no, of course, you might not have time, no. Feel free, no, and because it was Idil Fitr last time, no, I still had my Wednesday class. No, we actually tried this. No? So I urge you guys to try this on your own or with the group. No, try this exercise on your own time. No, choose one development challenge of San Remigio. Remember San Remigio as part of our CBMS data. Try to do a simple fishbone or problem tree analysis. You can make assumptions or invento kasi you don't have full data on San Remigio. You haven't interacted with anyone there. So you can try to do a fishbone analysis using this. Test nyo lang if you're interested. So we won't do that now. Kasi yung iba, again, and I understand, many of you are, really still frustrated and really sad and really distraught or numb. So I will not force you to really do a lot of work during this session. Closing the course. And actually, I update these slides now. Two or three more slides. That's it. We're done. This actually aligns well with our earlier discussion about the elections. So closing the course. So during the pandemic, and still now, and we saw an uptick in poverty, They were saying poverty eradication. This is not just the Philippines, but many developing countries. Because of COVID, and I hope we're out of the woods, seen out of reach during the pandemic. So remember why we are Remember why we had Soxai 13. Remember why you had your NSTP courses. Remember why you really voted for Lenny. Kasi most of, or all of you voted for Lenny. Because you really wanted to make a difference. You saw her as the means to make that difference. Eh, wala. But still, it falls on you. The responsibility still also falls on you. Use that to fuel your passion for, or your love for country. It's never too early to start. And I think this is my last slide. And this really happened before. No? Hindi ko sinasabi banal ako. Definitely not. I'm not saying follow what I did. No. But just to provide some guidance, no advice. And this is a real story. No? And it's funny. No? I didn't remember that this incident happened. Pero my friend told me, my best friend in college told me, ay, pre, sinabi mo to sa akin before. No? And that really changed my viewpoint. So circa 2000, no, right before we graduated, I knew what I was gonna, and this is a true story, I knew what I was gonna do na. Unlike many fourth-year kids na, or students, no, they still don't know. They're gonna look for a job or whatnot, or mag-masters ba. Ako, mag-Jesuit volunteers, diba, JVP. And again, that's another plug. No? If you want to make a difference, volunteering, the good thing with that is both serving and at the same time, you gain experience. No, sinabi ko pala sa kanya kasi at that time, no, the mentality, and especially when you're young, no, at your age, no, I'm sure many of you have this sentiment or predisposition. No. Sabi niya, pre, ikaw okay ka, JVP ka, yung iba mag-NGO. Ako parang gusto ng parents ko corporate, no? Which is, pretty common for Athenians. Ang sabi ko sa kanya, pre, hindi yan masama. Number one, it doesn't mean you'll be eaten by the system, no? Kain ka ng sistema. And my counter argument there, no, pre, kapag tayo lahat pumasok sa NGO or development sector, paano na yung corporate? Again, my mentality at that time was corporate was evil. But, as I've explained to you guys, no, that's no longer my viewpoint. Of course, there's that side of the corporate world, the greedy ones. Iba naman yun. So yun, kaya sinabi, okay, so he went on to the corporate world and he tried to be, he tried to make changes here and there. So yun. So again, my point here is regardless where you end up, you might end up in, you can make a difference and you can make a change. It doesn't have to be government. Of course, I'm advocating that you also join government. But even if you don't directly work for the government or an NGO or a social enterprise or a co-op, etc., even if you go for business, and as I kept arguing, you can make a difference and use your frustration now to make a difference. You can affect any change in any sector. That's why we also explored shared value examples. If you're really interested in NGO and government work or the development sector, donors like us, USAID, etc., keep in touch. Shoot me an email. Many students have reached out to me after the course, after they've graduated. I can give you my personal email address. Now that the pandemic is done, we can have coffee if you want. But make to be safe, if you want, have two of you, to avoid optics of anything. And some tips, before I end. Read the news again. Be aware. Be conscious. Based on what I gathered, I myself am happy that you guys are really more socially aware, than many of my colleagues when I was your age. Many of my co-students. My classmates. But my top choices again are Manila Bulletin, Star, Business World, because they are, for me, the most non-partisan. I already mentioned to you what I think are partisan media outfits. That's fine. Read them. But also, also read others para you don't have a, tunnel vision. Be a critical reader. Don't readily believe what's reported by media or what you see on social media, obviously. Participate in socially oriented organizations or movements. or integrate development principles in other orgs. No? When I was teaching this last sem yata, yung Management Association or Ateneo Junior gusto nila, sir, magso-social enterprise kami kasi yan, maganda ma-integrate yung sa business and mag-ano kami yung what we learned, no, yung SST, no, social solidarity. Gusto namin yun. So you can actually, you can integrate development principles in other orgs or in your future careers, no, whatnot. Participate in mobilization if you want, no, after careful consideration. But again, I will always argue, and you might not agree with me, academic strikes are not the way to go. I respect the sentiment, but not the action. Some break, fine, but not striking. Because, at the end of the day, it's still respect for democracy, for me. That would trump our sentiments. I am not happy with the Marcoses being back in power, but sagrado ang demokrasya. And again, as I mentioned, integrate development objectives also in project ideas. I mentioned that already. Read up on good examples to inspire you and revisit examples in this course. Take your NSTP and outreach classes seriously. And lastly, avoid the Messiah complex. Try in your own way, but do not view yourselves as messiahs or saviors. That will always be the worst approach. And that's it. So I really hope that, it was hit or miss. No? I know I was competing with, and thank you for the large group today. No? Even though you were angry, distraught, numb, or blah. Thank you for joining. No? And I hope you picked up a thing or two, no, in the lesson. I hope it was useful. I know I was competing with your majors, which to a certain extent are more important maybe kasi majors sila. No? But I hope you picked up a few things. At the end of the day, whatever you learned here, please use that, no, for your future careers. Wherever career you end up in, you can make a difference. And use your frustration, no, to yesterday and today, no, as fuel for you to make positive changes. Any last comments before we end? Again, next week, ask me anything. I will be online for the first half hour. If no one shows up, then I will just leave. But I can stay as long as what? 7:30 or so. 6:30 or so. Any comments, guys? Okay, so again, remember homework number 2 is due on Friday, no longer Thursday, May 13th, Friday the 13th. And please reach out to Mr. Dino Saplala for the deadline and other questions on the final integrated update. Again, guys, maraming salamat po and thank you for indulging me in the first part of this class. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the SEM.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Salamat din.
Thank you, sir.
Po.
Thank you, po, sir.
Thank you po.